Hi, I'm Ryan Cummings from R&R Law Group. Welcome to Your Brother at Law. Here, we break Arizona law in simple, straightforward terms. Whether you need tips or insights on legal processes, I'm here to make the law easier to understand. Let's dive in and make legal knowledge more accessible for everyone.
Today, we're going over domestic violence and what it means. So, a lot of people think that domestic violence means that you had to have hurt someone or that there had to have been some sort of act of violence. But it really doesn't mean that. Domestic violence is just a tag that gets added on to a lot of these different statutes. And as you're looking through here, a lot of them discuss basically things like assault, which obviously can include violence in there, but it's not necessary. No injuries have to occur, but it can also be linked to criminal damage. Did something get broken? This we find out a lot with arguments in the home, and someone breaks a glass, or they break a lamp, or they break a phone, something like that. We'll see a lot of instances of that where it'll be a criminal damage, meaning some piece of property got damaged. And then if it happened with one of these six different definitions here that we're going to go over, if it hits one of those, then that's what then creates that domestic violence tag that gets added to that criminal damage. Another very common one that we see is disorderly conduct. Now, disorderly conduct in Arizona, and we'll go over it in a different video, is a very broad statute. It basically means if you disturb the peace and quiet of another individual, or if that was your intent, if you intended to disturb the peace and quiet of another individual. Could also mean that you engage in seriously disruptive behavior. Again, we can see these a lot with family arguments that happen at home, and maybe a neighbor overhears it and calls the police. Now the police come, and now you're charged with an underlying crime, and then that DV tag that gets added to it. So it's just a separate portion of it, and is a different part that the state's going to have to prove in order to prove you guilty of the domestic violence portion of it. But think of it as an underlying crime plus this additional thing that gets added to it. So not only does the state have to prove that you're guilty of the underlying crime, but then they have to prove one of these six things. And let's look at them as we go through here. So one of the following has to apply. You have to have a relationship with the victim as one of marriage or former marriage, or a person residing or having resided in the same household. Now, this one's interesting because we have ASU, we have U of A, we have a lot of roommates that could get into an argument or get into a fight, and you wouldn't normally think of it. Two college guys, in a dorm room getting into a fight, and now they say that because you guys are residents of the same household, and now you potentially could be charged with domestic violence. Again, it seems odd, but it's one of the ways that the statute could get applied. One of the other ones we have here is that you and the victim and defendant have a child in common. So you guys have had a kid together. That's again, pretty black and white one. It's either easy to prove or it's easy to not prove. The victim or defendant's pregnant by the other party. And again, this is an or, because if it's not always females that are the victims in these cases. The males can be victims in domestic violence cases as well. So it just says one or the other party is pregnant by the other person. The next one, you're related to the defendant by blood or court order as a parent, grandparent, child, grandchild, brother, sister, marriage, parents-in-law, grandparents-in-law, step-parents, step-grandparents, stepchild, step-grandchild, brother-in-law, or sister-in-law. Again, so these are all the different ways in which either if you're related to somebody, either by blood or by, again, it says court order, basically by marriage, you can get that domestic violence tag added on to your charge. The other ones, if it's a child who's resided in the household and the defendant's related by blood to the former spouse, or the defendant to the person which they reside in the same household. Again, so what we're looking at a lot is, what is the household look like? Is it is it someone who's lived in the household for a long time, or is it somebody who is maybe a child of your spouse, but maybe they don't live with you, maybe they were just visiting. So that might not apply to the domestic violence tag, but that's one of the nuances that comes into the domestic violence tag. As you look through here, then, relationship with the victim and defendant is currently one of previous of romantic or sexual relationship. So this basically means, are you guys dating? Are you in a romantic relationship? Is it a sexual relationship? And then they can use these different subcategories to determine whether you're currently or previously in a romantic or sexual relationship. The type of relationship, the length of the relationship, the frequency of the interaction between the victim and the defendant, and if the relationship is terminated, the length of time since the termination. So again, we're looking at the timelines of what that relationship looked like. If you're currently dating, then that could be something that says, okay, the DV tag applies. But if this is someone that you dated 10 or 15 years ago and they just happen to run into them, and then something happens and you get charged with a disorderly conduct, well, now that's a defense to the domestic violence tag that gets added onto it to say, hey, look, our relationship was 15 years ago. I haven't seen this person in that long. We're not dating anymore. We don't have any children in common. We don't live in the same household. The domestic violence tag really shouldn't apply to this person. So these are some of the nuances that apply with domestic violence. So if you find yourself charged with a crime or a crime that has that domestic violence tag on it, give our office a call. We'll give you a case evaluation. We'll go over the strategies and how best to defend yourself.
Thanks for joining us today. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more valuable insights. We'll see you in the next video.